All right, everybody, I want to welcome you back to another episode of The Shadows Podcast. I'm your host, Trip Bodenheimer. And today, this is really cool. Steve Robinson, he had a 34-year career at Chick-fil-A. He's the author of Covert Cows. We're going to unpack a lot of his journey here today. Sir, thank you so much for being here on The Shadows.
Thank you, Trip. Pleasure to be here.
Well, first of all, where are you located?
I'm sitting at our home up in Highlands, North Carolina,
Ooh, North Carolina.
on the
That's
back porch.
how's the weather out there?
Today it's about 70 degrees, a little threatening of rain, but that's okay. Beautiful morning.
Yeah. North Carolina's got so much, the beaches, the mountains. I mean, it's just got the best of everything
Yes,
there.
beautiful state. Beautiful
I'm
state.
originally from Lumberton.
Okay, all right.
Yep. So up 95. All right. Well, I want to start off with some rapid fire questions for you. First, outside of your book, what book recommendation would you have for our listeners?
Oh my gosh. Well, I guess if I was going to limit to one or two, I'd start with the Bible. I
Okay.
I think people underestimate the leadership and management principles that are embedded in the Bible, throughout the Bible, but particularly books like Psalms, Proverbs, Ecclesiastes, um, Paul's letters to Timothy, where he was mentoring younger Timothy. The other book that had a profound impact on my life was a book written about Churchill called The Last Lion. It's
Hmm.
actually two books. It's a two-volume book, and it really unpacks not so much what Churchill did, but why he did what he did, how he processed decision making, um, how he was willing to be courageous and run against the crowd. For example, in World War II, early before World War II, the appeasement crowd was kind of in charge of Britain, and he was kind of the lonely voice warning Britain and Europe about
Hmm.
who Hitler really was. And he stood up against all that. And of course, we know the rest of the story. When the reality of who he was emerged, who do they call? They called Churchill. But anyway, awesome book. Um, it really is a book that encourages you to be a leader based on principle and the right balance of teamwork, but also courage.
Yeah. Okay. The Last Lion. And yeah, the Bible, best leadership book out there.
Best
Been
one
said so
ever
many
written.
times. Yeah.
Always relevant.
Uh, absolutely. Absolutely. Favorite item on the Chick-fil-A menu?
That's a hard one, but I would say waffle fries followed by frosted lemonade.
Okay. Waffle fries,
Little
frosted
trivia
lemonade.
item. Do you know what the number one selling item on the Chick-fil-A menu is? It's the waffle fries, not the sandwich.
Yeah, I was gonna say the waffle fries. 'Cause, I mean,
Yeah.
you probably get it if you don't get the salad, you're usually ordering the waffle fries with them as well. So to
They
balance
go
it out
good.
a little.
They go good with almost anything, including the frosted lemonade.
Yeah. Every dipping sauce they go. Speaking, that'll be our next question. Favorite dipping sauce?
The Chick-fil-A sauce.
Chick-fil-A. Okay. I'm a
Yeah, that
sriracha.
that item was that item was actually developed by an operator up in, I think it was Lynchburg, Virginia. He started mixing that sauce up and had it on the counter in a gallon
Yeah.
pump for his customers, and he got to the point he couldn't make it fast enough. He was going through
Wow.
5 and 6 gallons a day, and he came to the home office and said, "I need help." Anyway, the short of the story was we decided he doesn't need help. We need to adopt it and roll it out. So
Yeah.
we bought the recipe from him and rolled out Chick-fil-A sauce, and
Wow.
it was and is a huge hit.
It's my wife's go-to. My daughter's is barbecue, and I'm torn between sriracha and Polynesian. So we're very diverse
Yeah,
with our
those
Chick-fil-A
are the
sauces.
those were all popular.
One travel bucket list place you have not been to yet.
Normandy
Normandy.
and the
Okay.
cemetery.
So I actually went
I
there and
would.
I got some glass bottles when I went, and I went to all five of the beaches and got sand from all five of them, and
Good for
have
you.
that in my office. Pretty cool.
Yeah, I would love to go, and it would probably be a great trip for every American,
Absolutely.
particularly
Absolutely.
particularly our younger generation.
Yep. Yeah, in the military, there's a term rebluing, at least in the Air Force. And I tell people, I'm like, no professional military education or uh, reveille retreat, none of that stuff reblues you like standing out on the shores of Normandy. That
Yeah,
makes you realize
I
that
bet.
purpose. Final question
I
for
bet.
you. Dinner for
Yeah.
three historical figures no longer with us. Who do you break bread with?
Oh my goodness. Well, Christ.
Okay.
I can't imagine that not being something I'd want to do every night.
Yeah.
The Apostle Paul
Okay.
and Churchill.
Okay. All right. That's a solid three
Yeah,
right there.
yeah. Paul
All right.
fascinates me because if you know his history, he was a, a zealot, highly educated Jew. His former name was Saul. He was bent on destroying the uprising of the Way, the early church Christians. And it's just fascinating to me. Once he was converted to Christ, why God did not change his personality. He changed the focus of his personality.
Mhm.
Um, just a fascinating leader. Anyway,
Okay. Well, yeah, you have survived our rapid fires, and now we're going to get into your story. So, talk to us about your upbringing. I read in the book what your father did, but talk to us about your childhood and what were some of your aspirations growing up?
yeah. Well, I was the firstborn of four and the only boy to John and Martha Robinson, who met at Ohio State. They got married in 1948. They moved to South Alabama. No, yeah, they got married in 1948 and immediately moved to South Alabama because they both decided, we don't need to live up here. It's cold up here. And his background was he grew up on a farm
Mhm.
in central Ohio, and they raise chickens and pigs, but their primary revenue, they raise hybrid seed corn. It's the corn you ultimately plant for feed, or a stock feed. And so my dad and his brother, one of his brothers, he had five, started a business in Foley, Alabama, which is 10 miles north of Gulf Shores, um, a hybrid seed corn business, and it grew to be pretty darn successful. So I grew up in that business, working not only around the house, but in the fields and in the processing plant, operating equipment out in fields when I was probably way too young to be doing it. um, and I learned the value of work. I learned mechanical skills because of him. I certainly learned the spirit of entrepreneurism and the tenuous balance between having fun, but also paying the bills and making a living. And I got to see him operate as an employer with a very diverse, multi-ethnic workforce, and it was really an incredible education. Unfortunately, in the mid '60s, the Farm Subsidy Act. I won't go into a lot of details. I talk about it in my book, but the Farm Subsidy Act started paying farmers in Alabama more money to raise trees or soybeans than Dad could afford to pay them in rent for their land. He was leasing land to raise corn. He didn't own his own land, and he had to get out of that business. He couldn't make a go of it anymore, and he started a manufacturing business, which I discuss in the book. I traveled with him as he was out on the road, and I learned, Trip, that nothing happens unless somebody sells something. And I became fascinated in not only the whole process of selling things, but what was becoming an evolving brand management discipline in the country. Companies like Lever Brothers and Johnson and Kellogg's, et cetera, were starting to really pop up, and they were building brands that had not only functional value but had personalities, and I was attracted to that. And then, as it would have it, God would have it, I got to spend my senior year in New Zealand, and I spent a year in Christchurch, New Zealand, with a family. And my New Zealand father was an entrepreneur. He
Wow.
ran a tool and die shop, and he also remanufactured car engines. And he, on the side, he built jet boats. So I had the influence of two men at an
Yeah.
early age who were entrepreneurs, understood what it took to run a business, make a profit, employ other people, um, preferred creating jobs as opposed to having a job. And there's a huge difference.
Yeah.
And so by the time I got ready to make a decision to go to college, I decided I wanted to major in marketing, and that's what I did. Went to Auburn and met Diane there. And after graduating, we both graduated on the same day. 4 days later, we got married. And about 2 weeks later, we moved to Evanston, Illinois, and I went to graduate school at Northwestern. So she and I, post college, she and I kind of grew up together. We were 22 when we got married, and didn't have our first child until we were 24, which is Joy, who you met via the phone and
Yep.
the internet.
Yep.
So that's the background. I loved Foley. Was an awesome place to grow up in. So was Christchurch. Um, Loved Auburn. Other than the winter, loved Northwestern. Great experiences, and both those schools set me up for a really exciting and fun career. Obviously I had no idea that it would ultimately culminate at Chick-fil-A, but I had a great career.
Yeah, and you ended up going to the Stars Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
You went to
Yes. Yes.
Six Flags over Georgia. Oh,
Yes.
go
My
ahead.
first job out of grad school was Texas Instruments.
Yep.
They hired me to be part of their first marketing department to market consumer goods. In this case, it was handheld, the early generation of handheld calculators. I was there about a year. Quite frankly, I was getting frustrated because they were very engineering oriented, and even though they wanted a marketing department, um, we weren't very empowered. And so I was a little frustrated. And my focus was direct marketing, direct sales of calculators using media and direct mail. Phone rings one day about a year into that, and it's the director of marketing for Six Flags Over Texas, Dan House. And I had been to graduate school at Northwestern with his brother. That's how he got my name.
Okay.
But short of that is he asked me, would you like to interview with Six Flags? We have a project over here. It was a marine life park that they had a management contract on, Seven Seas. And I'll shorten the story. I went to work with them. They interviewed me for a full day, offered me the job at the end of a full day of interviewing. Went to work with Six Flags. I worked with them for 7 years. The last 4 years, I was director of marketing at Six Flags Over Georgia in Atlanta. That's how we got to Atlanta. Always wanted to work in Atlanta.
Yeah.
I reflect on my career. So many of my dreams and aspirations, the Lord navigated things such that I got to do them. So I had 8 years of working with publicly owned companies, TI and Six Flags. Love Six Flags, brand oriented company, learned a lot, but they had been bought a couple of times and were starting to become very quarterly cash flow focused.
Mm.
And it was making it difficult to invest in the brand, not just traditional marketing, but invest capital in the brand, keep the experience fresh. Phone rings one night. I'm in my office, And it's Jimmy Collins who was the COO for Kathy, the founder of Chick-fil-A. And I had met Jimmy probably 3 years previous because we had pitched him and a couple of his associates on building a Chick-fil-A restaurant in the park.
Yeah.
A way to build their brand and create trial. They were a very small regional chain, just in malls. And the footprint of their store distribution really lined up with the footprint of where Six Flags drew most of our business. They chose not to do it because they weren't going to make money on that store. It was never our intent they wouldn't make money. It was designed to build trial and awareness. But anyway, that's how I met him. So it's roughly 2 years later when he calls me one evening in August 1980. And he said, we don't have a marketing department. And it's becoming clear we really need some help provide operators what they need to build their sales. Now, he wasn't thinking brand. He was just thinking about selling more sandwiches.
Mm-hmm.
And in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, well, I know you don't have a marketing department, or you would have done that deal with me, 2 years ago. But anyway, he said, would you have any interest in talking to us? And my answer was absolutely. Even though I loved what I was doing at Six Flags, I was very impressed with their company, their culture, him, and the fact that it was private. And I knew a lot about their values, and they lined up with mine. And Trip, quite frankly, I figured, I got a great job with Six Flags by spending a day with them. What's 3 or 4 days if I invest with Chick-fil-A, Well, 5 months later,
Yeah.
December of 1980, I'm still interviewing, and I'm sitting in Truett Cathy's office. And I'm doing all this stealth, okay? Because I do like the job I have.
Right.
And I looked at Truett and I said, Truett, this is starting to get a little cumbersome. What are you looking for in the ideal marketing candidate? And am I the guy? I don't know how much longer I can do this. And he hesitated quite a long time. And I'm thinking, well, I may have just messed this whole deal up. And he put down his sandwich. And again, remember the question I asked was, what's the ideal marketing candidate look like for you? And he says, I have absolutely no idea. All I know is I don't want to do it. And he didn't say it with a smile or a smirk. He was dead serious. He said, I'm more concerned about who you are, whether if you come here, we can trust you and have fun together. Because you need to understand the most important decisions we make at Chick-fil-A is who we invite to be part of the organization. We don't train culture here. We hire it. I said, well, what do you think? He said, I'm not going to give you an answer until I spend more time consulting with Jimmy. And but that answer really was a whopper. I mean, it was certainly complete paradigm change from the traditional marketplace approach. He was thinking way beyond competency of skills. He was thinking character. He was thinking of leadership potential. What I didn't know is they really considered this hire to be a potential officer in the business. They never said that. So the end of that was 2 weeks later. Jimmy called me and said, we want you to do it. And I went to their staff Christmas party. Dinah and I went to their staff Christmas party. At that time, there was only about 35 staff members. It was at one of Truett's son's home. And that following January 12th, I think, 1981, I went to work. And they didn't have a marketing department. And I got to start literally from scratch to try to figure out, how do I help them? How do I help the operators? It wasn't until a few years into it that I realized that this company has potential to be a different kind of business, a very unique brand. They don't have to be like the rest of fast food, which we'll probably get into. And But did I think I'd work there 34 years and serve on their board 3 more years? No,
Yeah.
never dreamed that.
What an incredible story. And then, you said a couple of things there I want to ask you about. Uh, was there ever talk of Chick-fil-A going public? I know they're still private to this day.
Oh, there's always talk, but not internally.
Yeah, yeah,
All the talk is
yeah,
outside.
yeah.
No. I
Reddits
mean,
and Facebooks.
Truett even had 2 different occasions had visits from Warren Buffett. No, um, Truett had no aspirations for great wealth. In fact, one of Warren's visits, I only know this secondhand from Jimmy and the CFO who were in the meeting with Truett and Warren. Truett was talking to him about selling the business, and Truett said, "Well, what would I do? This is all I know. I have fun doing this. I love working with people. What am I supposed to do? I have no interest in selling this business." But the bigger issue to Truett was he had this growing family of Chick-fil-A operators who were independent contractors. And I think he never really articulated it, but it became very clear that he knew that if he sold the business, the entire infrastructure and cultural underpinnings of the business would probably change, including the operator deal. And he wasn't going to do that. I mean, one of his promises, remember, one of his points to me is, I want to know we can trust each other and have fun together. And this whole issue of trust and loyalty was very important to him. And that was both ways.
Yeah.
And protecting the culture, protecting the operator arrangement. He was not willing to sacrifice that just for money. He was never motivated by money. He was motivated by creating opportunities for other people, using the business to bless people, using the money to help underwrite ministries and charities that he had a passion about. And so, no, selling the business and opening on Sunday were and are still non-issues, non-negotiable. Business is now into the 3rd and 4th generation of his family. They're very competent members of that family. They have an incredible non-family member of leadership people around them. And I think the business is in very good hands for the future.
Yeah, and huge respect Chick-fil-A for, staying true, especially, we're a very instantaneous society now. We want things here and now. And it's weird because if you really think about it, being closed on Sundays, even still to this day, people are like, well, we got to go today because they're closed on Sundays, or oh, we're going to go on Monday because it's closed. So it still
Right,
works out in their
right.
favor.
Well,
Next thing I want to ask you is, what were
this
some
is
of
a
your
little sidebar, but
aspirations
a
growing
lot
up?
of
Like what
brands,
you're
one of the things that
graduating, you're
make a lot of
finishing
brands
up,
very
in
popular
Sumter.
is scarcity.
What were you
And
thinking you would be doing as a 30-year-old?
and people, if they, as a brand becomes a little less
Honestly, I
available,
didn't know because I mean,
if people
when
really
I
love it, loyalty
graduated,
actually
again, I
ramps
moved
up
in
a
the middle
little
of my
bit.
senior year.
Mm-hmm.
But the biggest advantage of being on Sunday
And
was Truett and his brother when
so
they
I
opened the
didn't
Dwarf
know
House
anyone
in
at Lexington
Hapeville
High
in
School. So I mean, like I said, I was there Sumter, so I just
1946.
say Sumter High.
You've been there, by the
Um,
way.
Good.
And
Well, and it's been remodeled 3 or 4
my
times.
grades were not
You
good
wouldn't know
enough
it
to go
today.
to
It's
a
been
four-year
total.
college,
Last
and
year
that
was
was
totally
grades like
rebuilt.
you
Anyway,
before you could do online. And
their
before
first
you had
Sunday,
the
they
private
thought they were going to be
colleges
open,
all that.
and that
So my
first
grades weren't good
Saturday
enough
night,
to go to a
they
four-year
looked at
college,
each
so
other
I
and
wasn't
said,
sure.
Truett said, I don't want to work tomorrow. You want to work tomorrow?
I don't even know what got
Ben
me
said
into
no, and he
it.
said, "What? Well,
Other
then why
than
are we going to
I
ask people to work
love hands-on
on Sunday
stuff,
if
and
we're
I
not willing
loved
to work?" So they
learning
closed,
spreadsheets and
and
the
they
different
came to the
Word documents
conclusion
and
that
all
if they
that.
could not make a good living in 6
It was
days, they were
basically,
probably
it's
just
called
in the wrong
Information Systems
business.
Technology, but it's basically just a
So
soup up thing for
that was
saying
it.
secretarial
Closed on
science.
Sunday after
But
the
that's
very
when I
first
went and
week.
got my 2 degree in.
Never changed.
I
Yeah, and
always wanted to own
I
my
think
own
it really
business.
helps them attract better
My
talent,
dream
to be
was to
honest.
have a consignment store,
Because
to be
people
honest.
know they have that day
But
off.
I always wanted
Gives
to
people probably
have
helps
my own
contribute to
business.
people having a better rounded and balanced life.
And I didn't know
They don't
then
have to
how
go
that
to
would happen,
church.
right? I mean,
The point is they have a day
I didn't know how to
which
make
they
that
know they
happen.
have
So my
no
my
business
goal
obligations.
basically was just to make ends meet.
For me, I knew
you
the phone
know,
wasn't going to ring unless it was just some sort of bizarre emergency.
do better by myself, I guess, and make
Nobody
sure
sent
that
any.
you
We
know, I
even
was
had an
doing
email
things that
blackout. No emails on
I wouldn't
Sunday.
end up the way
And
everybody was
operators and
saying.
the entire family have a
And
day
then
of rest.
secretarial science just led into
Another
other
thing you
things.
said too, we were
I
talking
tell
about
people I have a
the
lot of previous
culture,
lives.
just the
I
culture of
was an
Chick-fil-A in
insurance
general.
billing
In your book,
coordinator.
you said other
I was
brands rely on marketing and
I was
advertising
hired
to
as an
drive
insurance billing
customers to
clerk. They
restaurants.
found
Chick-fil-A
out that
relies on the
like
restaurant
within 3
operators
months, I
and the
basically
teams
knew
they
ins and
build
outs, and
to attract
so then they made me the
customers
coordinator.
into
So
their
I was over
restaurants.
somebody.
Others
That
drive,
was
we
in my
attract.
late 20s.
And one thing that really stands out to me, we were talking about this
Basically
before
learned
we
more about
hit
insurance
record.
companies than I wanted to.
But to me, it's like Chick-fil-A and Buc-ee's
And
are
it was
kind
a
of in
great
like
job. They
a
just didn't offer
category to
insurance.
themselves.
And then
Buc-ee's
from
is that
there,
scarcity thing you're talking
I had
about,
my
where they're
daughter,
not
and
everywhere. There's not one on every
I mean,
because I
people
corner.
wasn't
drive
supposed to have
tens
kids,
of
so I
miles
found out I
to
was pregnant with
They
Kinsley,
will.
and then
Buc-ee's. Yeah,
They
right.
will, but they
I
won't
wasn't
pull
working,
off for a
and then I went
Texaco or
into as a
a
billing clerk
PP or
at
somewhere.
a
But
foreclosure law
another
firm.
thing about
And that's where I
Chick-fil-A
spent the last 13 years
and
before I
Buc-ee's, them
became
both.
an
But
entrepreneur. And
I
I
see
was
it in the
ended up, I was
military.
a billing clerk,
We lived
and
overseas.
then billing
We
specialist, and then
traveled to
billing
the
auditor.
States
So
for
I
a
was
training or something.
I was
And
one
one
of
of the
their
first
auditors,
things
auditing all
constantly
their
said
money
is,
and the billing
okay, I
and
got my
stuff like that.
Chick-fil-A in. I went by Chick-fil-A. I stopped by
I do have to
Chick-fil-A.
ask,
You hear
what
people going
type
back to
of
the States,
closure
and
do
it's
you
like,
have with your
all
father?
right, I got to make sure I find a Chick-fil-A when I go there. Even my
did you get
family
that
moving
moment
up
of
to
like, hey,
California,
I forgive you for
my
everything,
family
I'm
was
good
like,
with everything?
where's the nearest Chick-fil-A from where we're going to be living?
Yeah.
It didn't
Why do
happen
you
when most
think that
people would
is
think it
that
would.
it's not like,
Yeah.
wow, where's Papa
He
John's from
battled
where we are, or I got my
with his
Burger
addiction.
King fixing? Why do you think Chick-fil-A and Buc-ee's
I
are
guess
so
up
different in that
until,
regard?
I don't know,
Yeah.
maybe I was
I
told by
I
one of
don't
my
have a
cousins
short answer for
about 6
that.
months before he
Yeah.
passed away.
Because that
He was
question
saved.
represents
He
the
found God,
result
got
of the
saved,
brand
and
evolving.
he just
Yeah.
quit of all
When I
the
joined
times.
Chick-fil-A, they were
you know,
only
he
focused
just
on
he
selling
wasn't able to
chicken
quit cold
sandwiches.
turkey. He quit cold turkey.
Now,
Then I don't know
Was
because
it
I
a
didn't
good
have anything
was it a good chicken
to do with
sandwich?
him at that
Yes, some
time.
might even say it was great.
But
And it was the first
he
one,
was
so it was
diagnosed
also
with
an innovation in the
leukemia
marketplace.
that turned into bone
But then
cancer.
everybody starts
His body
copying it, and
couldn't
other
fight it.
brands have chicken sandwiches.
All the drugs and all that.
And so the evolution of the
the years that
brand,
he shot himself up with a needle,
we
and
decided part of the
the
evolution
cracking all,
was we're not going
his
to put
body
anything on the
there
menu
just
we
wasn't
don't make
anything
fresh.
there to fight.
So
to
every
help fight
restaurant
it,
is in
right?
fact a restaurant. Every restaurant has a
So I got a phone
unbelievable
call
kitchen.
letting me know that
They're making salads.
he was
They're
he
breading,
was
milk
basically on his
washing and
last
breading the
days, and
chicken
if I wanted to
fresh.
see him, I need to come see him.
They're
So
spinning
I went to the
milkshakes
VA
by
hospital here in
hand.
Columbia, where he
It's
was,
not getting drawn out of a
and
machine,
Oh, yeah.
etc.
it's funny.
And so that was a
His
major
eyes were glazed
evolution. We're
over,
not going to
so
go
it's like
the
he
traditional
couldn't,
fast food
like he
route
couldn't
of
see.
pre-made or partially pre-made coming in the
My
back
cousin
door.
had to tell him
We're
a
going to
couple of
make
times that I was
real
there.
food, be a real
And
restaurant. Now we got to figure out
I
how
sat
to do that
there,
and
and
be
it was,
fast
I
and
don't
be
know,
good
it
at
was
it,
just
and
like,
be consistent at it.
it was
And
him,
quite
but it
frankly,
wasn't him.
Trip,
I don't know
that
how to
was
explain
during
it,
my
because
career. That
again,
was probably over
the
half
drugs, he was
my
already
career was
much
just
older,
focused on
and
how to
then
get
the cancer,
really
when it turned
operationally
into bone
consistent
cancer,
and
it just
excellent.
ate away at him.
And it wasn't until the mid
And so I
'90s
was
when
about to
we
leave,
were up to
and
several
I
hundred
went over
free
there to
standards that
him,
we adopted
and
zero
I'll swear it till the
defects, the
day I
Lexus
die.
model, figured
I
out how to
leaned
build
into him
systems
to
around
give him a
clear
hug,
specs,
and
measurement,
his
working with
eyes
suppliers on
all of a sudden were
conforming
no
to
longer glazed,
specs for what came in the
and
back door,
he had a
etc.
hard time speaking already, but he
And
was
really raised the
trying to
bar
try to lift
on
up and tried to
consistency. So
say
part of the answer to your
something, but
question
you could
is I think
literally
people
see it in
realize
his eyes what he
Chick-fil-A
was
is
trying to say.
consistent.
It's the first time in my
That
entire
it's
life
not
he was
only
actually trying to say
food
what
they
he
like,
said. And
99% of the time, it's always the same.
you could just, I could
Yeah.
see it. I
So
don't
that was
know
part
how
of
to
the
explain
journey.
it, but I just knew
The second
that's
part
what
of
he
the
was trying to
journey,
say.
or the next big
And
part
I
of the
told
journey was
him,
when
I said, I
True
know, I
challenged
forgive
all the
you,
operators
I love
in
you.
our national
And
seminar
he gave me a kiss,
3 years in a
and
row.
then just like that, his
When people say
eyes
thank
glazed
you,
back
say
over.
my pleasure back.
It's the most eeriest.
And his point was, you
I
can't
just
look
I don't know how to
somebody
explain
in
it,
the
but it
eye
was
and say
for
my pleasure without
moment,
looking them in the
what I
eye,
put
it
on
usually
Facebook,
means
I
you're going to
remember this
smile at
for
them.
a
It creates a
moment.
connection.
He was my
And
dad.
it's contagious.
My daddy
It
again, and I was
affects
his
not
little
only you
girl.
and the customer,
And
it affects the
you
people
know,
around you.
I tell people all the
It
time
breathes this spirit of we're here to serve. We
that
appreciate who
I
you are.
grieved.
We
I grieved
respect
the
you
loss of him a long time
as
ago,
a person
right?
and your
Before he
business.
even died. but that
But how do you
moment,
get beyond just saying
him
my
trying to
pleasure?
say
And
he
that's
was
when we
sorry,
started the
you
whole
can
second
actually tell
mile
he meant
initiative
it,
of developing a
without
hospitality
even
model unique to
words.
Chick-fil-A.
And so we got
And the
that
challenge their
closure.
trip, no
It
different
was
than
been
how you fly an
7 years
airplane,
now.
is how you do it the same
Because see, I wouldn't let him have anything to
time. Not
do with
only
kids.
two
He
pickles on
wasn't
a
allowed to be alone
sandwich,
with my kids.
but even the disciplines of
Because
hospitality.
I just, you know,
And
I
we
didn't have a
did research
choice
around
when I was,
what
you know,
were the
different
behaviors that
times.
people really
I
like.
made the decision to be around him because I was trying to
valued,
give him a chance. But I tell people all the time,
how
I have a
how we
choice.
going
I
to
know,
train
and
this,
they're not going to
how
be
we're
around
going to measure
someone,
where
you know,
the
by
stores are
themselves
actually
or
doing it,
anything like
just
that.
like
So
two pickles or the right temperature of food.
but yeah,
It took 7
we
years
got
to
that
track the
closure, and
model,
I
train it,
thank God every day
roll it
that I
out.
actually went.
Yeah.
And I would
And I
have to
tell people all the
say
time, they're like, "Why'd
that
you go?" I said,
whole
"Because I
second
didn't
mile
want anybody to regret
hospitality initiative
of not
had
going."
more transformational
And
power
honestly,
on
I
the
went more
brand
for closure for
than
me.
even the focus on
You know, if I'm
operational
going to tell the truth,
excellence.
the reason I
I
went
mean, going into
originally,
that, we were having
the whole
multiple
reason
years
of
where we're
going
running 4 or
was
5%
so I would have
same-store
closure.
sales increases. And in the fast food
That
industry,
was the
that's
whole
gold.
reason. Wrong or right, that was the whole reason. Because a lot of times
But
when
when
we
we
forgive, we're
eventually
forgiving
rolled
to
out
have
second mile
closure for ourselves
service,
anyway.
those same store
And I
numbers
wasn't
started
going
to
to
grow and eventually
expecting him to
became double
apologize,
digit
right? I knew he'd
several
be pretty
years
much
in a
out of
row.
it. And I knew
Because
that,
what
you know, the
happened
cancer had pretty much eaten away
is
at
we
him.
started seeing
But yeah,
going
we
back to
did.
your original observation.
It's good you
We
got
saw
that. It's
operators
really good you
and
got that
team members
closure.
becoming
And
incredible
you mentioned
marketing
too, you
agents
said
of
you
the
weren't supposed to
business
have kids.
simply because of how they
Talk
treated
to us about
customers in
that.
the
Like,
store,
I mean, what a miracle
in the
there.
drive-through, in the community. We
Ending
actually
cirrhosis
launched
runs in my family on my
a
mom's
team
side.
member marketing initiative where team members got trained on
And
how to go into the
it
community
was
and
determined I
represent the
hadn't,
brand.
but it's come a long way.
We funneled
So
more money down to the stores through their
now, you
P&L
know,
to market the business instead
they'll
of
tell
taking
you that
money
if you're
out of
going
the
to get
stores
pregnant,
for
it'll be
us to do
hard,
it.
and then if you can't,
And the brand literally
there's things they can do
took
now.
off.
For you
And
to try,
so
like
now I
what they
think
call
most
scrape
of the
the
rapid
ovaries and
growth of the
basically try to
business,
get the
and it has been incredible,
clots out.
you have to say
I
it's
never had
because
to
the
have that,
operators and their
but
team members are creating
I was told it would be
brand
very, very hard
ambassadors
for
in
me to
their
get pregnant if I was
customers by
able
the
to.
millions. And those customers are quite frankly out building the business.
I got pregnant with
So
Kinsey
as
right
a
before
percentage of
I guess
sales,
right before I turned,
Chick-fil-A
I was
probably
29.
invests
I had her right before I turned
roughly
30.
half as a percentage
And
of
then I
sales,
had
probably half
Heather.
the
They told me I would,
what other
if I was going to
competitors
try
invest
again, I
in
needed to try and
marketing
have them really close
because
together.
of how
God had it.
the team members, the operators and their team members
I had
serve
her right
people,
before I turned 38.
treat people where sit back,
So my
serve
girls are
their
8 years and 8
communities,
days apart.
and create marketing partnerships
And
at the local level.
I mean,
Instead
crazy
of
story up
counting
to
on
this
just the
point. I mean,
national
just in terms
brand
of
to do
overcoming
advertising
so
and spend money on
much.
sponsorships.
Speaking of something else
etc.
that people had to
So
overcome,
that's a
the pandemic,
kind of a quick recap of the
COVID-19.
evolution of the
Yeah.
brand.
How did that impact you?
Almost 35 years. And
Well,
it's all because
okay, I'll have to kind of go back because in 2016,
the
I was let
culture
go
creates a long-term
from my job.
focus on the business,
And that
not
was when I
short-term
made the
results.
decision I wasn't going to
As a
work
result,
corporate anymore.
we can focus on building relationships, not just chasing transactions.
Honestly, I think I was on
And
a verge of a
two,
mental breakdown.
because of the operator
And
model
I
and the
had
restaurants,
another
the
feeling
leadership model of
that
Chick-fil-A
was
operators,
telling me I would
independent
need to get home.
contractors
And
who
it now was my
are
time.
highly, they don't have any investment in the stores. Chick-fil-A finds the
Basically
store,
no
builds
money.
the store,
People look at me and go,
equips the
no money?
store.
Yeah, there's no money.
But their income
There
is
was
half of the
wing and
operating net
prayers
profit of that store.
and
So what
pure
happens is they
determination,
behave like
basically.
entrepreneurs.
But
They behave like
because
Truett did
the
when he was running
landlord
the dwarf
agreed to
house.
prorate rent,
Every
because
customer is important.
I was able to cash the 401.
Every
I was
team
able
member
to
is
make sure
important
those
because
bills
they
were paid
represent
because
him
I
or
was
her,
able to
the
go and
operator.
get on food
And
stamps.
so turnover in
My
the
girls were going to
restaurants
be fed.
is much lower. Operators
I
can
found out 6
afford,
months
not only
later
need to,
that
but
my
can actually
oldest,
afford to invest in training and
the
management
reason I was needed at home
development.
is because she did a call out
So
for help,
over time,
and found out why.
most operators have a management team of
Come
anywhere
to find
from
out, she
6 to
has 2
maybe
mental health disorders.
10 full-time staff,
And she's also
salaried
autistic.
staff members, helping them lead that
So
enterprise.
if I had been working, I wouldn't have been
Today, the
here for
average
the call out
Chick-fil-A
for help.
operator has a restaurant
So
volume of roughly $8 million.
basically, I built my
It is not a
business,
small business.
took it to where I've taken it.
And the typical
It'll be
store
7 years
is
this
employing
coming
120
October.
to 150
And it was growing
team
good.
members.
And then, I deal
So
with the
when
schools
I left
day in.
Chick-fil-A,
She's
there was
autistic, has
roughly
ADHD.
100,000
and general anxiety disorder
team members in
and
the restaurants.
major
Today, it's
depressive
past
disorder, which is one of the
200,000.
reasons why I always
So this
advocate that we talk
business,
about
this
mental health.
brand, because of its
So dealing with the schools and all
predominant
that,
growth
and
being
then
through
my youngest
same-store
is also
growth,
special needs.
which
She's
is always
on
more
an IEP.
profitable.
So now COVID happened,
Is creating
and I find
incredible
2 kids at
job
home
this is how
who
the
have
American
special
system of
needs. One of
entrepreneurism
them who can talk like she's
supposed to
30.
work.
No joke, I swear.
And I think one of the
She
reasons that
can't
it
read
works
and
so
write
well
her
at
grade
Chick-fil-A
level.
is
She
Truett and Jimmy
can
figured out
read.
how to
She's going into 7th
mobilize
grade.
other
She can now
people
read up to
as
mid-fifth
close as
grade, but
possible
she
to the
can barely
customer.
write 3rd, 4th grade.
And
She struggles with her
incentivize
writing.
them
She's just
to
they call
do
it
it well,
dyspraxia.
and
It's like a
incentivize them so
muscle
well
type
they don't
thing.
want to go
I never
anywhere.
heard of it, but it's hard for her to
So
hold
you
the
have
pencil,
less institutional
a
knowledge
pen, and
walking
then when
out the
she has
door.
the reading disorder,
Longer
where it's hard
term
for her to take
average
things
operator
in,
turnover is less than 3% a year.
read the things, take it in,
Most
and
of
then
that's
respond.
retirement.
However,
It's
she
not
can
because of
listen
bad
to you,
performance.
remember what you say, read the question out
And
loud,
the team member
read the
turnover is
answers,
roughly
and
a
then she can
third of
tell
the
you what the
industry
correct
average.
answer is. She's auditory. It's amazing.
So
But if she reads it
of all the
silently,
things
she'll
going
get
on
the
at
answer wrong.
Chick-fil-A, I really think the
But then all
cultural
this, like I
focus
said,
on
all of a sudden COVID
long-term growth,
happened.
long-term
I was
health,
on my
building
way back from a bowling
relationships. We're
tournament,
trying to build relationships with
and
customers.
all
We're not just
these
after
notices are coming
their
up. Look
money
at the schools
today.
have shut down for a
And
week.
the
right?
operator model,
Spring
probably
break
the two
is
biggest building
ending. We're
blocks
going to have
of
an
the
extended
business.
spring break. They're going to be closed for another
I have
week. And
2
then
more
the next thing you
Chick-fil-A
know, we're
questions
closed
before
for
we
a
get
month.
into your book.
The next thing you
One of
know,
the,
we're closed for the
a
rest of the
big
year. We're
aid in
doing
that
online
growth
learning.
was something you were responsible for. It's that cow right there.
It was
And the
an
Eat More
adjustment.
Chicken campaign. I
Because
remember
I had
going
2
to
kids,
the
2 kids
Peach
at home,
Bowl
one in
in
elementary
like the
school, one
early
in high school.
90s. And I
One
remember it
who
was
did
just the
not like
Peach
having
Bowl. And
her
then I went
face on
about
the
8
video.
years later and it was the
But she
Chick-fil-A
had to
Peach
go
Bowl. And I remember
to,
going to the seat.
that's how she had to do the
Every
classes.
seat had the little stuffed animal cow
And
sitting right
both of them I
there.
had to help with their assignments,
And
make sure
so
their
talk to
assignments
us
were
about
being done,
that
and keep up
marketing
with
behind
their
that, because it's
ADHD.
really intriguing in the book how you talk about it.
So
The
it
3D
took some adjustment. The schedule, my
billboards and so
schedule had
on.
to be adjusted with my clients and my work schedule.
Well, the cows were
there were times where I
a
basically I
byproduct
worked in the
of
evenings,
I think
and
I would describe a core
in between
brand
calls, I'd
marketing
block an
strategy
hour, help them, then I'd do
to
new calls,
not
and then I'd
look,
work in the evenings.
smell,
So
or think like
it was an
anybody else
adjustment.
in
It
the
was
fast
hard
food
for them,
space.
which I think made it harder for me.
In the
or
80s,
hard
we were
on
doing a
me.
lot of things, which I talk about in the book. We were doing a lot of things that looked like everybody else. And in fact, one of those
I don't know.
promotions that we did just
I
absolutely
can
blew
honestly say it wasn't as hard for me
went
as it
over
was
budget.
for some people as far as
It was focused
financially
on
goes.
couponing and pricing,
My business,
which was what everybody else
my
was doing.
business,
That was a $2 million
it went a little
mistake,
bit.
I
It
believe.
had a lower year.
About a $2 million mistake, hurt the
but
business,
didn't
put us in
plummet
a
to
bad
where it went
spot
out
at
of
a bad
business
time.
or
It
where
was
it was in the negative
1982.
that year.
And even though the Lord led us through the
I think
financial
the hard
crisis,
part was
in fact,
the
it was
mental.
during that crisis
The hard part
we
was the
wrote
mental,
Chick-fil-A Corporate
because it was hard on them
Purpose that I talk about in
mentally,
the book.
and it was you couldn't go anywhere.
That crisis really led me and my very small marketing team at the time to say, we're not going to do things
I
like
love my
everybody
girls,
else.
but oh dear God.
And we kind of took on this renegade
and
mentality.
you mentioned
So when we
mental
look at marketing options,
the
whether it was
mental
advertising or promotions or
fatigue of
even
having
going
them
to market
around and
through the
everything during
operators,
that.
we got to control
Talk to us
them
about the
from the
importance
top
of mental
down, or
health
we
for
got to
you, because
actually
that has
empower them from the
become,
store
especially
up.
since the
We
pandemic,
chose that.
Very much of a
All of
buzzword.
that came out of this epiphany that
mental health was
let's make
important to me
Chick-fil-A
before the
brand that
pandemic,
doesn't
but
look
even more so
like
after.
everybody else.
You
We
gotta
don't have to
understand,
chase
my oldest,
transactions
who's
to
in high
meet
school,
quarterly returns.
She was 6 years old.
How
She
do we
was diagnosed
leverage
with
this
generalized
leadership
anxiety
we have in every restaurant?
and then she was diagnosed with major
And so we
depressive
didn't really
disorder.
have enough, because local marketing was so
So
successful
you have
via the
you have a
operators, we
kid
didn't
who's
really have
fighting
any
these
need
two
for
types
regional
of
and national
disorders,
marketing
and,
until the
mental
mid-late
health, and
90s.
it's not the same as you and I
But when we
going through
reached that
having
point,
anxiety
we did an
over
agency
something
search,
or situational or being
extensive.
depressed every now and then. That's
Two of my
it's not the
team
same.
members
Like,
led it. I gave them
1 minute
complete
she's
power to
fine,
lead
and
it.
then
I didn't meet any
anything
agencies until they told me, we think we ought to hire the Richards Group.
It's her system. It's
And
like
then
all
I
of a
went
sudden she
to
can't
meet
tell
the
you what's wrong.
Richards
She doesn't know what's wrong. She's just it takes too much to get her
And
out of
what
bed.
we told them was, and we told everybody during
So
the
when you got
search
a kid
process, we don't want advertising that looks like everybody
who
else.
has that, and fighting those
Two,
mental
we
health
can't
disorders,
afford to do what everybody else
and
does. We can't afford to be
you're
buying
stuck at
a
home.
bunch of TV or broadcasts. We don't have enough stores to fund that. The
it
operators
got
aren't
to
going
the
to
point
fund
to
it.
where they actually said
3, we
they
don't want to do
could
anything with
show
marketing that actually
proof
competes with the
that she was
operators
going backwards,
doing what
not
they
being
do
seen
locally
in
to build
person,
relationships
and
and
they could
market the
actually
stores
show,
on their
I
own
don't know
or
what
in their
terminology it
communities.
was, but
We
basically
want an
saying that she
advertising program
needed
that
that she
actually
needed to be seen,
gives them an
in
asset.
person with her psychologist.
And they can use,
and
they
as
can
soon as it was
leverage and not
allowed,
just
even
counting on us
Patient's
to
Match,
do stuff at the
they had her
national level.
because it was detrimental. Which
Stan
made me
Richards
realize
was
that
the owner
mental
of
health
Richards Group.
was even that much more important.
He made a commitment
and
to us. He will
that
not
we
see
needed to
any
stop
creative
having it be a
that I have
taboo
not
subject.
personally approved.
You know, I tell people all the time, I'm a money
Now that
coach,
was a
so I
pretty
tell
big
people all
deal.
the
They
time
already had
that
Home
money needs
Depot.
to stop being something we don't
They
talk
had
about,
Motel
and so does
6.
mental health.
They had
I
Fruit of the
think
Loom.
the
They had some
reason
large
why
clients.
we have so many issues with both
For him
is
to
because
say
we
to
don't
us,
talk
who
about
was
it.
we were
And if we were to talk more
a
about them,
speck
then
on
more
their
people would
revenue,
be
on
able
their
to
balance
help,
sheet,
and
you're not
not
going to see
feel
any
so
creative I have
shameful
personally approved. It was a
of
major commitment. Quite
having
frankly, that was
whatever mental health
the
disorder
tipping
they
point
had,
of them
and realize that it's
getting the
okay
account.
and that they can reach out for help.
They had the business about a year. They
So during
recommended you can't
COVID,
afford broadcast. We agree. But there's a medium out there to your attitude about not looking like everybody else that everybody uses to show product, price, or where to turn.
During the day, so that we were outside.
We're going to recommend you use billboards
just getting a
to
little
build the
bit of
brand.
Vitamin D.
Because we think it's the only thing you can use to build the brand that you can afford
listen to a podcast.
365
it was basically being creative to find something, but then
they started messing around with the three-dimensional technology, which was fairly new then.
I think I took it even more seriously because I make sure that
stuff that
I have time for me, so that's my
separate on the board.
Make sure there are things that the girls are doing.
One of the first ones was a giant rubber chicken across the board. I showed in the book
that I go for my massages. That I take
and the
a bath
headline
every now and
was,
then.
"If it's not Chick-fil-A, it's a joke."
So I can't be interrupted.
Put that one board up in Dallas.
Just to sit in the quiet.
So popular, the operators in Dallas.
Having kids is awesome,
put it on 5,000 t-shirts, and they sold out in 2 weeks.
It's hard for us to take care of everybody else.
So we knew they had
and that's one of the things I realized, because the pandemic, it did enough.
Nobody else was
the one thing I will say that I had during the pandemic was
I'll fast forward
I had
roughly
already been
6 months
out
later,
online
we're looking at a new billboard concept.
So everybody
they've just shipped them FedEx. There's no fancy meeting.
2020 when the pandemic happened.
The guy that worked with them, Greg Ingram,
and I tell her quite often that she was my sanity.
Had laid these 6 board
I got her.
concepts
She
on
was
my
30
desk.
minutes a day. I had her 30 minutes a day every single day.
I come in for a meeting.
That was my. I honestly
like
believe
most
that's what got
Westerners,
me
I do it left to right. I start flipping
because
them
I
up.
already had that in place.
And the last one,
that was my sanity.
Are these 2 cows painting?
Okay.
Eat more
and
chicken.
I'm
Just
very curious. One of the big talking points that I wanted to discuss with you
I absolutely
was the Sassy Wealth
laughed.
Coach.
I lost it.
So talk to our listeners about the Sassy Wealth Coach and where can they find
Greg
out
and
all
several others heard me
information
down the
about you.
hallway. He came down to my door immediately. He says, "Well, I already know which one you like." This is
and wealth is
completely,
in my opinion, is those who are wealthy
versus
than
the
be
rest
rich.
of the fast food category.
Oh yeah,
people are rich and
it's funny.
Can't stand what they do.
It will appeal to almost any age demographic.
They don't have
it's
freedom.
taking a pot shot at the burger guys.
So in my
without
opinion,
people even knowing we're taking a pot shot at the burger guys.
And
let's
when I started my business,
now remember, we're just dealing
I wanted the freedom to be able to be there for my girls. I wanted the freedom to be able to take off when I needed to.
We put it up
to take
in
them
Atlanta,
to appointments, whatever it is I needed to do. To
the
make
summer of '96, which
so,
was the year we were going to host
my business
the
evolved
Olympics.
Into the Sassy Wealth Coach.
We got a strategic board just
because I
2 or 3 blocks
I think
south
everybody should be wealthy, and that
the Olympic Stadium,
to me
which
that
became
means
the Braves
freedom
Stadium
to
after
live
the
your
Olympics.
life the way you want to
Coming
live it,
up 85, 75 into Atlanta, and we put
be empowered with
2
your money
cows up there painting "Eat More Chicken."
So many of us fear our money,
and the buzz in the community and the chatter on radio. My tagline is I help people take their money from chaos to and customers are coming in because telling when we're empowered operators with our they love that billboard.
Instead of fearing it,
nobody, even when we were running advertising, which looked like everybody else, it was a picture of a chicken sandwich.
And that's what I do. Is
they weren't talking about advertising then.
Have
and it really reaffirmed
better relationship with their money,
my supposition
so that, managing their money
operators wanted to show
business.
Food.
They can save for the things that they need. And
my position was, listen, we can show all the food you want, but all you got to do is change the logo, and it could be Burger King and McDonald's.
That's my passion. I'm kind of really passionate because I grew up.
Those 2 cows.
So You know, I'm one of those
Eat
ones
Mor
that they told if you didn't marry into
Chick-fil-A,
money or didn't come from money, you were
they're
never
not going
gonna
to
have
mistake
them.
who that is.
Remember when I told you I love proving people wrong?
So it was such a hit in Atlanta. We ran it in our top
Well,
10
that's the
markets.
credibility.
We paid for it
Pure
for 90 days.
determination. I proved
One
them
board
wrong.
per market.
Yeah, that's credibility when you're like, I've been on
Incredible
food stamps
buzz.
and look at
We got,
what I'm doing
we
now.
had two operate. We had
I
two
went from
cows
food
stolen
stamps
off a
to
billboard
figures in
by
3 years.
some kids up in Chattanooga. That made the wire service,
It's
CNN,
amazing to me that I
radio
make more money
stations were
now
doing
than I did when
live
I worked
remotes from the
corporate.
board,
And I was in corporate
talking
for so
about how
long.
Chick-fil-A was taking on the big
but
guys.
I also worked less hours.
And we knew we had
but people,
home run. And by the way, we told
majority
the
of people will
operators,
say,
if you
and
don't want to keep
nothing
doing it
against
after
anyone
90
who
days,
works, who's in the military,
you
who
can take
clocks
it
in
down,
and
but
clocks out,
we're going to
day
pay
job
for
or
it for the
anything.
first
Some people
90
love
days.
that,
Well,
right?
they all left it up. We go back to Stan.
I didn't like the balls
his
and chains that came with it, because the
And we
majority
said
of
the
the
obvious.
places
We think
aren't
you have an
going to work
idea
with you when you have kids
here
and
that's
you need
bigger
some
than
time
just
off
one billboard idea.
and be with them and take them to appointments
whatever time you
and
need,
figure
turn out
out,
to be 3
what's
months.
going on. And when
And
we
you
were
work
figuring out
on
what was
what
going on
would
with
it look
my
like if
oldest,
these cows
the
became
appointments were galore. There was
iconic brand
psychology appointments,
ambassadors.
testing, all kinds. It was just
What would it
nonstop.
look like
And then
in
there was meetings with the
advertising,
school nonstop.
multimedia advertising in the store,
And I would have been able to do all that
promotions,
if I'd have been working.
kids
corporate.
meal, except the whole
they'd
thing.
have fired me just for that because I would have had to take off so
And
much time.
they did. We went back 3 months.
but
They came in. They showed us
my
a
whole key is to be able to live life on
campaign
your own
concept.
terms.
We loved it.
And,
we made some changes.
whether
tweaks,
that's
some
having a 9 to
tweaks.
5
We
job,
rolled it
there's a
out.
way that you can manage your money and still have the
And I
things you
worked with
want.
them.
If you have your own
I had the
business, there's a
privilege
way
of
you
working
can
with
manage
them
your
and my
money
group
and
for
have the things
22
you want.
years, where the focus
I
was very
love
simple,
telling
great
people,
creative, funny
one of the
creative,
clients came to me and she said,
renegade
I was
creative,
told all my life, you either have to
unexpected
live
laughs, unexpectedly fun.
now or save. And I
And
just looked at her
all
and said,
we're
why can't
doing
you
is
do
driving the brand and
that? And she
driving the
just looked at me and
conversation
said, why
around the
can't you
brand.
live now in the
And that worked
moment?
its way obviously
and
into
save
college
for
football
the
through the
future?
bowl, and then through over time we
You
started
can,
buying
as long as you're
college
doing
football
it,
media with
strategically
ESPN and
and you have a good
CBS.
system in place, you can.
Today they were,
And that's
we
what
were
I
one
show
of
and help
the
my
first
clients with.
14 college football
You got to
playoff
do a quick
sponsors.
elevator pitch for
We're still
Sassy
in that
Wealth Coach
space.
to someone
It's
out there who's on
powerful
the fence.
fit
What
for
would you
them.
say?
If you are
the
tired
cows,
of burying your head in the sand
and we were spending
and you
a
want to be
fraction of
empowered
what
by
the
your own
other
money and
guys
stand
spend.
on
They
your own
still
2 feet,
are.
give me a call.
But the cows
Okay.
broke through all that clutter
The sassywealthcoach.com
and put
Yes,
Chick-fil-A on the map.
thesassywealthcoach.com.
So I tell
You can
people
also
all the
find me
time,
on Facebook.
iconic advertising is as
After
much
Facebook is
luck
the Sassy Wealth
as
Coach.
it is strategy.
And I also have a
And that happened
free
for us. I mean,
Facebook group that's called
the
Sassy Wealth Coaches.
strategies was
Okay.
using
And
billboards as a brand mechanism.
Final question for
3D
you here.
Cowboys.
Your
was the
legacy into the day.
executional
When
model.
people mention your name 50 years
The
from now, what do you
cows
want them to
was a
say
creative
about you?
stroke of genius luck.
That I lived my life
But
to the fullest, and
I think, and I'm not trying to take
made
credit
an
here, but
impact and
I'm
changed
saying
people's lives.
I think sometimes great companies who
I'm
have
not
great
letting you go that
iconic
easy. You still owe
advertising
me dinner for 3
walk
names.
away from their iconic
Oh,
Well,
come
I'll take.
advertising. I think
on.
I don't
that's no
forget.
big deal.
Look,
We can do
people
it
heard
again.
at the beginning, and
I
they're like,
wasn't thinking about it
Nine
though the
times
whole
out of 10,
time.
you'll never do it again.
yeah, that's. Owe it to the listeners.
So that's why you have
Okay,
people like
one
Pillsbury
dinner,
who came back to the
one
Pillsbury
historical figure.
Doughboy, and Eveready came
One
back to the
historical
Bunny.
figure?
And
You got musicians, you got actors, you got
Fruit of the Loom came back
presidents.
to the Fruit of the Loom guys, and Tony the Tiger came back, and et cetera, et cetera. And
I mean, you even look at
Go ahead.
Taco Bell. They got away from the Chihuahua. That Chihuahua was a hit for
I
Taco
think
Bell.
they made a huge mistake.
I'm sure I'll think of a
Huge
musician
mistake.
later, but none of them are coming.
I think Wendy's made a huge mistake walking away from Where's the Beef.
Yeah.
One actor
and their brand has kind of wandered ever since.
100%.
Dinner with.
So sometimes business, we can overcomplicate, we can overthink business. And
Better
when it
rephrase,
comes
like,
to
who would you have?
advertising, if you
He was in
stumble on an
Roadhouse.
iconic
He was in
campaign,
Roadhouse.
Oh, Patrick Swayze.
you better be
Yes.
really careful
That's a
before
good
you
one.
walk away
Thank
from
you.
it.
Swayze.
I had to think
Yeah.
about it.
Leverage it.
Patrick Swayze.
We chose to leverage it,
adored
invest
him,
in it, be patient
growing
with
up
it.
in all his movies. I loved all
Let the
his
cows
movies.
show up
He is one person I would
unexpectedly,
love to sit down
almost
and,
anywhere.
as you said,
Yeah.
We equip the stores with cow
raw fries
costumes,
and
all kinds of cow
absolutely.
Oh,
marketing
you're taking them to Leo's
materials
now.
for them to
Okay.
use in their
Oh, yeah.
stores and in their markets.
Okay. All right.
We
Well, let me
leveraged
ask you
every
this.
event, whether
So,
it was bowl
what was your
games, road
favorite
races,
Patrick
whatever
Swayze
it
movie?
was. We leveraged every event we were at
My
with
favorite
two things: the cows and real food.
was,
We sampled food. We
Roadhouse.
didn't coupon. We took real
All right,
food.
Roadhouse is
And even
Roadhouse
in
is a
that
really
bowl
good
game,
one.
there was probably an offer
My
in the
second
seat, but it
TBS
wasn't a
version.
discount. It was a free sandwich.
Not a TV. No,
Hmm?
no, the full version.
So,
Yeah.
Yes,
Ripping the
TBS,
heart out,
be
everything.
generous.
Yeah, TBS
That's
does
another
it all bad.
principle we learned was
My
instead
second
of
one would
discounting and
be
dealing on price, just be
kind of
generous with your
tied. I love
food.
Dirty Dancing
Let
and I
people
love
try it.
Ghost.
And the odds
yeah.
are, we knew from research,
Sam.
the odds were very high. If you
Running
get
his
people
name
to try
on
Chick-fil-A, they become
Ghost Sam on the
a regular
computer, the
customer.
old Apple. Yeah,
And the
and
penny going
brilliant
up
marketing. The
wall.
cows are
Oh, you
synonymous
see,
now with
yeah,
college
yeah.
football. But now I want to ask you
Demi
about
Moore's
your
amazing
book.
haircut.
Talk to us
Okay.
about Covert
both of
Cows.
them, and Whoopi
Where
Goldberg.
can our
I mean,
listeners get a copy of it
all
at?
of them were just that.
Well, I
and
wrote
people are like,
Covert Cows
I'm like,
and released
I
it
just love
in
the movie.
2019.
It was a good movie. Yes, it
And
was a
to be honest with you,
romantic
Trip, I didn't
comedy
write
type
it thinking
movie,
about
but it was just
general business.
I don't know how they
marketplace.
did it. Was
I
different
wrote it for the
than
Chick-fil-A family.
some of the other ones.
I was on
and
the
it was
board.
just a good movie. But Patrick
The
Swayze
business was
just
growing and still is. Was growing at a clip of something
he had
like
a good heart.
15% a year between new stores and existing store
his
growth.
wife's name is
Phenomenal
her name was
growth.
Deborah.
So that meant there were a lot of new
I swore
operators
growing
every
up
year, a
if
lot
he
of new
wasn't
staff
married, I was
members
like,
every year.
I mean, and then I swore when I grew up a
And
little bit that I was just
quite
steal
frankly,
him
they
away from his
had a
wife.
tiger by the tail, and they didn't have many resources.
His name was Bodie
that
in Point
helped
Break.
encapsulate the
Right,
history
yes,
of the
Awesome,
brand
because that's what everyone in the military.
I absolutely
and the history of
absolutely loved
Truett
him.
and how he
was,
shaped culture.
Roadhouse would
So
be
I
my
went to
favorite.
Truett's. By this time, Truett
but,
was
Dirty Dancing was
graduated,
pretty. Dirty
gone to
Dancing was
heaven.
good.
I went to
but
Truett's
then
oldest son,
Ghost
Dan
is, I would
Cathy,
say
and I
Ghost
said,
is
"Look,
definitely my
do you
second.
mind if I take a shot at doing
My wife and I saw
basically
the
a biography
pottery
of the brand and a
setup
biography of Truett?"
from Ghost, and
Have
it
at
was
it.
like a Planet
Absolutely.
Hollywood
Gave
or
me all the
somewhere.
IP rights I
We
needed.
reenacted me standing, me
And so I
sitting
wrote
behind
it,
her
released it in
doing
2019.
the pot.
What
Just
I
the
learned
opening
over
part of
time
it, where
was
it's
Right.
she acts like she's
it
doing
might
it.
be
And
more
the
popular
pirate,
outside
yeah,
Chick-fil-A
the
than it is
pirate,
in.
I roll in some blue
And
jeans, waking up,
it
and
has certainly sold
start
more
doing
than
that. Yeah.
I ever dreamed it would.
All right, it's a good way to end this episode.
Publisher
All
must
right,
be happy
so
with it. They're still
one
printing
more
it.
time, folks, if you want to find out
And
more
it's available on
information, head over
Amazon.
to the
It's
sassywealthcoach.com.
available at bulk
And
books.
thank
because
you
a
so
lot of
much for
people,
taking time for doing this. Any
businesses,
last comments for our
communities
listeners?
buy large quantities of it.
I think the biggest thing I will tell you is
Anyway,
don't
that's
listen
how it
to
came
what
about.
anyone else says about whether you can or can't.
It's even though it's been a few years
When
since
there's a
it
will,
came out,
there's a
it's
way.
still completely relevant.
You may not
It's
see
not
what
dated.
it is,
I
but
intentionally
when there's
wrote
a
it
will,
so
there's
it
a way.
wasn't
You have to be
about
willing to work at it.
it
You
wasn't
have to
about
be
the
willing to make some
financial history of
changes
the
sometimes.
business. It's
But
about the
when
cultural
there's a will,
underpinnings
there's
of
a
the
way.
business, the evolutionary
I really do like the message
history of
about
the
don't just
brand,
become a statistic
and quite
just
frankly,
say,
how I
"Oh,
looked at
I'm
the
doomed
business
because
and
of
what I learned
other
from
people,"
Truett
especially those
Cathy
closest to
and
Well,
us.
kind of
others I
like,
worked
do you
with.
remember the Time magazine when
I guess
they
the fact
had
that you and I
the
are
egg
talking
and
is
the
that
frying pan? It
it's
says,
still fun. It's still a
Oh,
fun
the
read
commercial,
and
old
still
ladies
relevant.
if you have parents that
Oh yeah,
like
like you said,
do
it's
drugs
aged
and
very
you have
well.
kids who do
The
drugs.
thing I like about it
Oh,
is
so
it takes
that
you
was the
behind the
one where
scenes to
the
where it answers a lot of questions for
dad
you. You're like,
busted the
oh
son
wow, I didn't
for
know that.
smoking
There's a lot
pot,
of those throughout,
and
hidden
then he's
and
like, "Well, I
sprinkled,
see
and
you
like you
do
said,
it."
Truett's legacy
Yeah,
in that book.
yeah,
Even when you end
Yeah,
it talking
yeah.
about your
That's the
time
first
at the
thing that
Rose
came up in
Bowl,
my head when
was just like the
everybody was saying
perfect
what was
way,
it's
saying.
true.
I think,
And the
to
Time
close
magazine
out
had it
that
in
book.
there showing
But I do
statistics,
final question for you.
statistical proof that,
Actually, it's
and
gonna
it
be a
was
two-part.
statistics that it was the firstborn.
Your legacy at the end of the
And I'm
day,
the firstborn,
and then looking
I
back
was
on
like,
your
you know what?
journey, full
And that's
circle,
the other thing is I
going
think it's
from
just
spending that
don't
time.
listen to
Ask
what
about your
the
father, spending that time with your
statistics
father.
say, you
What's
know,
the biggest thing he
necessarily. When
taught
there's a
you
will, there's a way.
that you learned about yourself
You know, you may
throughout your
have, like I
journey
said,
at
you may have to make
Chick-fil-A?
some changes, and you're going to have to work at it. But
It's a big
anything's
question, but
possible.
I pretty
Well,
easy answer.
take
Actually,
that Time
because
magazine.
I've reflected on it.
So-
I
many
know.
times. I learned the value of hard work.
Well, thank you so much, folks. If you
I've
like
learned
what
the
we're doing
value
here on the
of-
Shadows,
of
I say
it's
this each
more
and every
fun
episode.
and potentially
Head over to
more beneficial
Spotify,
to others
head
if
over
you
to
create
Apple
jobs, have a
Podcasts,
business that
or
create
we make
jobs
it really
versus just
simple
going
for
to
you.
find
You
a
head over
job.
to theshadowspodcast.com.
If you got
We have a
the
leave a review
chutzpah
link. You
to be
can
an
click on that
entrepreneur
and
and the
leave
willingness
us
to take
preferably
risks,
a 5-star review. Let
there's
us
no
know exactly
guarantee
what
of
you think of the
success. As I
podcast.
said, my
Greatly
dad had
appreciate it.
success, and then
Spreading the
because of
word, getting those
farm
algorithms
subsidy
out there working,
act,
and
lost
letting other
it,
people
had to
find out
start
all
all
about the the
over,
Shadows podcast.
but he remained an
We will be
entrepreneur.
back next week for a whole nother
And then the
episode
third thing,
of
big thing I
the
learned from
Shadows
him was
podcast.
respect of
I appreciate it.
anyone
Thank
that
you.
worked with him.
Thank you.
It didn't
Yeah,
matter
that was a
their
great interview.
background,
I appreciate that.
their ethnicity.
Appreciate you being
He
transparent and
treated
vulnerable
people
on here too.
equitably and
So,
fairly.
really do. That was good. That was good stuff.
Generously.
You're gonna have to hit the stop recording.
And then when I worked
Oh, yeah, I
with
usually leave it
Truett, I
recording
saw
on
the
that.
same
I got it.
things
But
Yeah,
no, I
thank you. I
appreciate it.
appreciate it. It was awesome. It was awesome. I wasn't expecting
and
that much
particularly with the
vulnerability,
whole
but
issue of
it's
generosity
nothing
was
I haven't
just
talked about.
amazing.
So
I mean, the
it was
operating
Yeah.
awesome.
deal is incredibly
Well, I mean, that makes for the
generous.
best episodes. I usually
He
the ones
tithed the
that
business.
I
They
struggle
still
with are the
tithe the
ones where it's like
business and the ministries and
you,
foundations.
it's like, hey, they know what the
So
podcast
when
is
I look
about,
back
which is
to
the
the second part
shadows,
of your
which is those dark
question, my
moments, and
own
they get on here. And I
personal,
had someone that I
I
recorded
don't
with,
think
and he was
about
like,
my
I want to talk
legacy.
about that.
I'm more
And I'm
interested in
like,
thinking about
okay.
my
And then I
stewardship.
ask another question. He's like, I don't really
I
want.
think
And they
each of
weren't like
us,
deep. It was just like,
for whatever
all
reasons,
right.
the good
And
Lord
I'm thinking
decided that
this
we would
episode
be
will never see the day,
we would be born
the
and have the
life a day. It's
opportunity to
never
live
going
in
to
this
make it out
country.
there.
Well, one
in
of the
this
things that, I
generation.
mean, if you go to my website and you go
And
to
what are
my
we going
about
to do
page,
with it?
I mean,
To
I
not only
talk
serve
about
others and help
the little
others and
snippets
create
of it, but it's
opportunities
in
for
there.
others, but what are we
Yeah, I
going to
saw
do
it
with
on
it
there.
to actually
And I
serve
even
His
have it in
kingdom
my,
and
my
the
emails
message of
because
the gospel of His Son?
honestly,
And I
when
take all that very seriously.
when you're
So,
vulnerable and you just
it's
talk
pretty
about those
clear in my
things,
book.
it
I
makes
take that
you seem
seriously.
more real to your clients.
So
and,
that's
you know, the reason why it's
my
discussed on
primary
there,
mission is
about my
how can I
foreclosure and
continue to
bankruptcy
glorify
and,
God, be
you
a
know,
good
all that,
steward of what
because
He's put in
I'm
our
not
hands,
some
Diane in
guru
my
who came
hands.
from money telling you how to manage
Still have a
money.
positive
I was
influence on
down in the
others.
trenches and
I still like to
know what it's like
consult and
to be able to
mentor
barely
other
pay
young
bills or whatever. And
entrepreneurs.
now I'm not, so I actually know what I'm saying.
In a
And that's
sense,
more,
I
it's more
guess,
relatable because I
in
mean,
my
even
own
like with the
space of
podcast, when
time and in my own circle of influence,
we always
just
get like
do the
requests
same
for
things
people
my
to come
dad used
on.
to do and Short
And
used to do.
I hate when someone is
I will tell
leaning
you, in
up
this
against their
culture, a
Lamborghini
big part
and
of
they're
my
by a
message when
pool
I give
and they're
speeches
like, I can get your
is
listeners
be intentional about your
7
purpose.
figures in 2 months. And
I'm
now I'm
amazed
like,
when I
well,
ask
what have you done? Like,
audiences,
why
how
am I
many
going
of
to
you
even
have a
listen to
written
you?
purpose? How many
I want to listen to
hands don't
someone
go
who's
up?
been down and out and had to worry about
How many
keeping
of
the
you have a
lights
corporate
on
purpose? Hands
Right.
go up.
versus,
How many of
you know,
you have a
your
corporate
mom gave
purpose
you
that
a
you think people
loan
know, understand,
and
and
you went
actually
out
follow?
and
Fewer hands go up.
you've been successful. That's just not,
And
that's
I
not
don't,
I mean,
real.
I
I
think,
tell my clients all
I
the
forget
time,
who
there's,
said it,
or anyone I
but
talk to, there's no judgment.
might have been
And they're like,
Socrates
why?
that
It's
said the
because
most
I've been there.
the
There's
most
nothing you can
wasted
tell
life is
me
an
that I
unexamined
haven't been
life.
there or I haven't
And inherent
you
in
know,
that is
been
getting
close
clarity
to or
about
struggled in some way.
why
There's
do
no
you
judgment.
exist?
And
What is my
Nails are
purpose
dirty.
here?
yeah, it's very
Helping an
relatable. And
organization that you're part of, whether it's a company
I
like
know
Chick-fil-A or
that
even the Air
if you do make
Force,
some changes and you're
expecting, demanding from
the
leadership
relationship to get the
clarity,
money to
why do
change,
we
they can change.
exist?
Yeah.
And
Well,
then from
I
that, you can
appreciate you.
start
Like I
to
said, if you just
formulate,
shoot me over a
figure out,
photo,
okay, what's my
I
role
will.
in that? And
I will go ahead and get a
if
cover
that's
art
why we
together for you.
exist,
Okay.
And
how does that impact
yeah, I
the
appreciate
decisions
you.
I
When will
make
this go
day to day?
live?
But I can
Very
assure
good
you,
question.
corporate purpose of
I've got all
Chick-fil-A,
my batch recordings kind
which
of
was
put
to
together.
glorify God by being
My
a
goal
faithful
is
steward of
I
all that is
definitely
entrusted
have
to us and
July
have
and
a
August
positive
set up.
influence on all who come in
And
contact
after
with
that, I'm
Chick-fil-A,
kind of
which was
plugging and
written in
playing, kind of seeing
1982.
like where everything's going to go.
That was not a bunch of words on a plaque.
It'll be soon. That's all I've been telling people is
It was
it'll
a
be
purpose
soon.
we
But yeah.
focused
Just reach
on.
out
It
to
was
me
a
and let me know when
purpose
it goes
that
live.
impacted, still
Oh,
does today,
100%.
impacts
Yeah,
how
absolutely.
decisions are made,
I think even like this week, I've got like 6
how
recordings
people are
I'm doing
selected,
this week.
how
So
people are empowered.
my goal is by the time we move, because
If
I
you
found out,
attract
and I don't think last time I talked to
really
you, we had a move
talented
date.
people
So we
that are
actually
not
got our
only
move
competent
date.
in their skill, but
So
strong
31
in their
July, they're going to
character
pack
and
up our
alignment
house,
with that kind of
which is
purpose.
really
That's right.
cool.
You're
Whatever
moving
your
to
purpose
California.
is, the greater
Yeah.
that
So
alignment,
last week I had
the more you
to
can
put
empower
together,
them,
it was
and
a
as a
Commandant's
result, the
conference.
greater
So
the
it was
atmosphere of innovation and
Commandants from all around the
creativity.
globe coming to here.
And we haven't
So I had to
talked a lot
coordinate
about
that.
that, but
And I was playing
Chick-fil-A,
this Commandant for the past
with
couple of weeks.
time,
We had our
that
graduation
culture
last week. We
fueled
had
one of the most
was another
innovative
thing going on.
environments I've ever been around.
Change of command for the
And I
commander.
have visited
There was
some
so much
incredibly
stuff, and I was like,
innovative
if I can get to
companies,
Friday,
not
I'll be
only at the
fine.
retail level,
Got
but
to
in their
Friday,
headquarters.
told my wife, I was
And
like, you know what? I just feel like
that's
getting
one
out
of
of
the
town
things
this
that really
weekend.
set
So
Chick-fil-A
we got out of
apart.
town.
But
I didn't think about
it's all a
nothing.
byproduct around the cultural
And
values,
came
how they
back
select
today,
talent,
and I got
and
back, and I
clarity
was
of
like,
purpose. And when
look, I'm not going to be
why
here
you
when this
exist
next
as a
class starts.
business,
So I'm not going to do
or as
everything for y'all and then be like,
a
hey,
division of of our military.
Next class, y'all can be like, oh,
you're
Odie, he
you're
used to do
empowering
that.
every
What do we?
member
I
of your
said, I'm not doing
organization
any
to
of
make
that. So
better
y'all can do
decisions
everything.
on their own.
I will assist and advise.
Which means
And then at
you
noon, I was
solve
like,
problems quicker.
I'm out of here. I got
And
some other
usually
things to do, and
the
I got out
solutions are
process. Like, I'm
better
gonna
than if
probably
you try
start
to
some out
solve every
process
problem
stuff
from
here
the
in a
top
minute,
down.
but yeah, less
And
than
not to get
30
political,
days,
but
and we
I think the
are
evolution in our
packing our
culture
house
right
up and
now,
getting on the
where
road. So I wanted to
there's
do
too
all my
much
batch recordings
um,
for
dependence
the
on
next,
decisions coming from the
6
top,
months,
whether it's from
because
government or
if I get there and I'm
corporations,
starting a new
headquarters,
job and
is
I don't
not
know
good
what
for
my
the
schedule is going
overall
to look like,
health,
I don't want to have to stress and be
innovation
like, oh, I got to get episodes recorded. At
environment
least I
Fine,
have them
because
recorded.
at
of the
least you
United
already have them
States.
recorded. You can get them back.
The
You can get
more
them
we
in,
Have
can
them
empower
recorded,
get
get
them
people
my feet
edited,
wet.
right? You
closest
get
to
them
the
edited, and
And
customer,
I'm
you get
starting
them
my
out.
masters too. So I'm like,
closest to the potential
all right,
problems to be
so I can
solved,
focus on masters for a little bit and just
closest potential
keep
to
rolling
actually create
episodes out
value
and
add work
promoting
and
them on social media
careers.
and everything. And if you got, do you have Instagram?
I think Chick-fil-A gives
I do.
evidence that that's a
Okay,
better
I'll follow
model.
you with the shadows because whenever I do post stuff, I like to tag
Well,
people.
I
can't
thank you
enough
it's the sassy
to
boat
do
code.
This has been a
Okay.
phenomenal
Might have
episode,
already.
folks.
Let me see
Go
if
grab
I
yourself a
already.
copy. Covert
I don't
Cows. I
think
think I
so.
grabbed mine from like Books a Million. So hop in a car,
But
go
my
grab you some
business, my
Chick-fil-A, go
business
grab you a
handle on
book.
IG
And
I am
we will
following
be
you.
back
I am
next week with
following.
another episode. If you like what we're doing,
Let me
head
see
over
if you're
to
following
Apple,
me back.
Spotify. Yes,
I
sir.
got one last thing I want to say, Trip. I want to thank you and every member of
Unless
our
I don't remember
military
getting. See,
for what
IG
you
is weird.
have done and
Sometimes it doesn't
do
give me my alerts and
to
lets me know
represent
when I
and
have new
protect
followers.
our freedoms. My dad and
So yeah,
Diane's
yeah,
father
I'm
both
following you
served
there.
in the
But what I'll do is
military.
I'll tag
The
you.
Shadow
And
podcast.
The shadows.
it's one of the reasons I want to go to
The
Norman.
shadows. It
Um,
that one right
I
there.
just can't thank you enough for what the men and women of the armed forces mean to us.
Worst picture.
So thank you.
I appreciate it.
this
is kind of what my cover arts look like. Folks, we catch you next week with another episode of the Shadows Podcast.